Welcome to Human Talk, where I speak with the people shaping the future of technology. I'm your host, Liliana Muscarella. These conversations explore the human side of innovation, including values, visions, and the choices that define our digital world. Today I'm joined by Piergiorgio Catti De Gasperi, better known as PGCDG, a leading voice behind the idea of privacy by ecosystem. As co founder of Web3 Privacy Now, he's focused on building coordinated, composable architectures that respect user agency across the digital stack. This is Human Talk.
Where to start? So I was studying economics and management for my bachelor, but always been very curious about history, philosophy, capital flows, power dynamics, and through, I would say, this self-exploration of the world around me, I encountered crypto through several happenings like WikiLeaks or Cambridge Analytica or the global financial meltdown. And so basically I've got to discover crypto through some practical use cases where these different alternative means of exchanging value and information anonymously, non-anonymously, decentralized, without intermediaries, with a lot of different characteristics, were basically calling me to see possible alternatives to basically, um, yeah, as I said, exchanging information and value in a peer-to-peer way without all this like opaque mismanagement of these public resources and information. And again, I approached, I think, this ecosystem from this very socio-political and cultural perspective. Then it got me time, and it was like more than 10 years ago, I guess, because I wrote also my bachelor thesis on Bitcoin as a revolution of trust, showcasing all these like real use cases where crypto can be meaningful, for example, for remittances or voting systems or coordination mechanisms. From that, I think it got me several years to find the, I would say, founding values and the history of these technologies, because it's not that, I mean, nowadays, like in the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years, thanks to a lot of advocacy, I think cypherpunks and original founding values of crypto, as in cryptography, arise back. And I'm very happy about this. But back in 2018, 2019, 2020, it was not that easy to come to encounter, I don't know, the cypherpunk manifesto, or the mailing list and the, as I said, the grounding principles of why these technologies have been developed in the first place since the 80s and onwards. So basically, this is what led my journey through crypto, like looking and discovering how we can use technology in a way which is beneficial for the people, for the public. And basically what Julian Assange was saying, so transparency for the powerful and privacy for the weak, is exactly the vision and the reason why I got into this space, and I kept hustling for finding meaningful projects, nice people, good narratives. And this is what led me to discover this research on GitHub made by this Ukrainian guy, that I started using. I mean, this piece of research was basically a collection of information around all the projects that in Web3 were claiming to develop privacy preserving tech. And basically collecting all the information around if the team is unknown or not, where they take money from, what is the stage of the project. So if it's a sunset, is mainnet, if it's a product, a service, if it's a wallet, if it's infrastructure, all this kind of information in just one page allowed me to have a broader and like quick infographic of how things were moving, of who was more legit than others. And so I just texted this guy and I was saying, this piece of work is incredible. I mean, it's so useful. There is nothing such like this in the space. So I would like to help you further developing this like piece of content that could help the general public to make more informed and conscious decisions, whether they are looking for a job or where to invest or who is legit or what product or service to use. And this is like just the start of Web3 Privacy Now, I think 3 years ago ish. And from this, a lot of things happened. Like we started doing events, we started doing more research, for example, around real use cases, how privacy coins were used during the war against Russia and Ukraine, um, and a lot of other like use cases grounded in problems that we are facing now in several places in the world. Because also I realized, coming from Italy, it was not easy for me to basically share this socio-political perspective around these technologies in my country, where we don't have, I would say, um, yeah, we still have some form of authoritarianism. There is not this much free speech. Journalism is like dead, but we don't have these serious problems as countries where you have wars, where we have dictatorship, where you have like, where really if you speak about the truth, you can die the day after. And so it was very meaningful for me to start traveling around the world to meet all these people that were facing these adversities, these problems, and to share with them this more um, meaningful approach on how we can use technology for addressing huge threats and challenges in places where people really have these needs now and not in 10 years. Sorry for making it long, but it
No,
was
that
just a
was
flow, a stream of consciousness.
that was wonderful. That's what we're after here. But I'd love to. I mean, that's a fascinating sort of origin story, and I think it really ties into a lot of things that I wanted to ask you about today. But I'm curious, maybe as you were kind of coming into this, and how did all of these, like your background, your the opportunities that you saw, the barriers that you saw, and all these sort of socio-political problems, how did all of that sort of boil down to privacy being like almost the way to solve them, or to at least like a starting point? How did you kind of, yeah, boil all that down into that specific project to tackle?
That's a beautiful question. I would say that I was researching, I was clearly feeling I was not resonating with how power dynamics were pushing down the people and meaningful education, meaningful um, interaction, and how much all this technology is putting us in a condition where it's very difficult to remain human and to be really connected with one another. So it was also like a personal journey, a personal discovery of how can I basically feel good in this very crazy world, uh, mm, where everything is accelerated and is demanding a lot from you in terms of you have to produce, you have to be productive, you have to be this, be that, blah, 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 and at the same time, a lot of misinformation. So for me, it was like a quest or a way to discover, to get to know more about how to be free in this world, how to be, um, and also why all these power dynamics are pushing um, us, humanity, in the way we are evolving and coming together in a way which, again, was not resonating with me. I studied also economics and management. I was like convinced that through politics it's not that easy nowadays to change the world as it was maybe 100 years ago. I'm talking about my country or Europe in general. And so I felt, okay, let's dig into entrepreneurship and let's try to build some business models or regenerative business models that can help society flourish through capitalism in a way. But then I understood that actually capital flows, financial markets, and technology are just bringing the game to a whole another level. And so I understood, okay, maybe not entrepreneurship, maybe not now, I would say. Let's study more how finance work. Let's study more how tech is basically becoming the leader in the political agenda, geopolitical agenda. Um, so to address your question, I feel it was a very natural, linear path that brought me from studying philosophy, history, and how finance and money works, basically, to finding alternatives that would allow me to basically um, be consistent with all the critics that I was posing towards the present systems and the power dynamics. Uh, and actually, how I ended like dealing with privacy. I think it's twofold answer. The first reason is that getting to know that, okay, no, the first reason is that privacy is the reason why crypto, as in cryptography, has been developed in the first place. Like cypherpunks, as also Adolf Huxley or Orwell were depicting in the 80s in literature, the internet would have become, it was a very risky and powerful tool for concentrating power, basically. And this is what happened. And this is why they started developing all these technologies and tools to preserve individual liberties in the digital space, in this new dimension that we created. And the reason why they were doing so, and this is also on the front page of Wired in their in the mails, in the manifestos, is to protect privacy. Because simple as that, you cannot have a free society without privacy. Like privacy is a fundamental human right, as is embedded in every constitution of the world, most of the constitution of the world, as a founding principle. And we are, I would say, kind of okayish in preserving privacy in the physical world, with, of course, a lot of exceptions, but still there is some regulations around that. But there is nothing about defending privacy in the digital space. And this is why I feel crypto came up as a bottom-up phenomena, movement for protecting our own interests, because actually governments and corporations don't seem to have this as a priority, at least in most of the countries in the last 40 years, 50 years. And so this is why I got into privacy. It was a very linear path towards trying to understand how we can do something meaningful and impactful and positive for ourselves, the people around us, the world. And the second answer is that, as I said, I'm approaching this space not from a technical point of view. And I see that what's missing here the most is the non-technical point of view. Because we have a lot of great minds, we have a lot of super high-tech people, but then this development is not led or directed towards some goals that can really impact society, which is hyper complicated. So you cannot claim to change the world only with code, because that code then must be used. So you need also, marketers, designers, you need linguistics, you also need regulations, you need law, you need policymakers, you need academia, you need, because at the end, and this is a strong point that I'm trying to make in general during my speeches, articles that I write, whatever, is that we should shift from cypherpunk to carepunk. Because there are a lot of nice people that care about privacy, care about freedom, and have done an amazing job in the last 30 years in the internet to do so. But still, all these efforts of restraining surveillance capitalism, authoritarianism, call it, you name it, are really scattered among different bubbles, niches, communities. And these communities, these people really thrive, really, it's not easy for them to understand each other because they use different tools. They have different categories or linguistical ways of framing what they're doing, why they're doing so. But at the end, if you dig, they have the same values, they have the same mission. So I feel one of the most important things we are trying to do with Web Privacy Now is to bring this bonding approach of building bridges, building vocabularies among these different professions and backgrounds and skill set, because we need a very holistic approach if we want to change things in the real world. Otherwise, we continue to preach this kind of very narrow and myopic views or vision that actually can be understood just from the people that are in our bubble and are not resulting into practical change in society. Because at the end, if after 40 years of hacktivism and code, we still have the same problem with privacy, but we have such a more powerful adversaries to tackle and to confront, probably we should learn from our past errors and come together. And actually, I've learned this, I've got to see this by working with several organizations from Web3, from Web2, from post-web, pre-web, NGOs, activists, journalists, politicians, policymakers. They all really, we have a new form of support. And they all share really the same values, and they really try to do the same thing in different countries with different tools, as I was saying. But at the end, they really have the same mission. And also talking with cryptographers that were in that mailing list, They were in open free software in the 90s. They were doing activism in a lot of different protests and through different means. And they were basically saying, and this is why I think it's so powerful, because I can tell this, but I was not there. I was like a kid 20 years ago. I was not in the mailing list. I'm not a cryptographer. I'm not a developer. But I heard from a lot of these people that they were not good enough into welcome diversity in the room. Because also at the events that we attend, we have a lot of amazing people that come and say, okay, I want to use crypto tomorrow to, to sell my art, to do this, to do that, to be able to speak the truth. But then we are not able to welcome these people and to talk with these people and to understand what are the real use cases. So, for example, this cryptographer, amazing person, super knowledgeable, Ying Tong, she is a researcher with the Ethereum Foundation. She was saying, I worked 2 years to develop these cryptographic tools and algorithms. And then I attended this event where in this workshop, I was sitting next to some lawyers, policymakers, people that were having the problems that I was trying to solve. And I understood that 2 years of work were like not really useful and impactful in order to assess real world use cases and problems. And so this is, I think, a key challenge, to be able to listen more, to be more open to team up with other people, because at the end it's not about cypherpunk, it's about carepunk, it's about who cares about the common goods, about human rights, about making this internet age more open, more grounded in individual liberties and freedom. And there are a lot of cool people, that are striving for this. So yeah, I think the only way we can make it is by teaming up and coming together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm curious, maybe if you could elaborate a little bit more concretely on kind of the role that Web3 privacy now plays as far as facilitating these bridges, for
Mm-hmm.
example. I think even across languages is really interesting. A lot of these events are, you basically can't attend it if you don't have some level of English. And then there's a lot of, this, yeah, cypherpunk, carepunk divide, as well as like technologists and human rights, I guess, practitioners. So, and I know Web3 Privacy Now, you put on a lot of events, but maybe if you could elaborate a little bit more on what that looks like, and also just from like a very basic knowledge sharing, database
Yeah,
preserving approach, kind of how do you navigate all of that?
absolutely. I think through education, curation, and impact. I will elaborate. I think a lot of the problems we are having in the space is because we are trying our best to have this kind of mass adoption or welcoming new people in the space, but the incentives that we give these people and motivation that we give these people are totally bullshit, because we attract them with bounties, with this kind of narrative, let's build cool shit, which is not meaningful. So we really clearly see that education is missing here. And the more we will go towards AI generated content and this technology will become more and more complex, the more difficult it will be to direct this development in a more meaningful way. So I would say through education, producing both a lot of infographics and content, gathering all the information scattered among different website platforms, sources, and making very easy to grasp, again, infographics, articles that can allow people to make more conscious and grounded decisions. We also have an academy online in different languages. We are now translating several courses in Chinese, in French, and we already have them in Spanish. Also to try to bring in the same room people that have the same interests. So if they want to learn ZK, we will make a cohort where all these people interested in ZK from Latin America can just gather and share their learning path and their experience and come together. Next to education, there is a lot of curation. Like we really care about facilitating and curating our events, our content, our speakers, and we really handle everything with care. And this is something that we also got um, to see through external eyes and perceptions, because a lot of people that are also in the space for like real OGs, people that came from Tor, people that came from even Audrey Tang, the digital minister of Taiwan, coming to our events, they were all like feeling that was not crypto. It was not about what you can feel on average at other events, but it was really about bringing selected people together and trying to facilitate a conversation happening among them, but also giving a lot of insights in a way. So also, for example, when we have speakers at our events, we try to have value delivered for the audience. So not shilling your product, not shilling your personal perspective, but try to give an overview about what's happening in the market. How do you see we can, and so deliver practical value. Also, for example, our newsletter, all the articles that we write down, it's really a matter of researching, of collecting like different thought leaders' perspective and trying to bond everything in one piece. So there is a lot of curation, there is a lot of, as I was saying, social, political, and cultural perspective, because we feel, as many other people recognize, like, for example, Ethereum is more about culture than about tech. All this movement is about culture, is about people coming together with similar needs and with the recognition that we need to develop better tools, better coordination mechanisms, better ways of interacting with each other. And I think events are a big part of this, because the only way you can make people really coming together and understanding each other is in real life, is by having a conversation which is not grounded in, hello, I'm a developer, hello, I'm a lawyer, and so it's not a match, but more about making this fun and making this like, I experience a lot of times where, for example, we try to put people in the same room and like throwing on the table Naruto, and they were like, oh my god, I love Naruto, or I love anime, and they started vibing, and after 30 minutes that they were vibing and talking about their personal life, their passion, whatever, they discover, I'm a lawyer, I'm a developer, but they now know that they are friends, they can talk to each other, and this unlocks a lot of interesting things that can come up from that encountering, from that interaction. So we are also trying to bring a lot of play, a lot of fun in the space, because privacy has a lot to deal with this doom and gloom Twitter, criticizing each other, blaming each other because you're not enough private, you put a picture of myself at the event, all this bullshit. Rather than supporting each other, supporting, giving feedbacks to all the amazing projects and people that are striving to develop nice product and services, or funding privacy, or teaching privacy, because a lot of people like blame each other because you don't have Graphene OS, you don't have Linux, you don't have this, you don't have that. Help me, explain me, and most importantly, don't exclude me from the conversation if I don't have a fucking Linux, you know. So by bringing fun, by bringing this more playful and human way of getting together and getting to know each other, we feel there is like a lot of interesting outcomes, rather than always bringing the conversation to hyper tech, whatever. In 10 years we will have the tools that we need. It's all bullshit, because we had tools for the past 40 years to have private conversation online and offline. We have a lot of amazing tools nowadays that can be used, but for example, a lot of like privacy maxi or people that are only in crypto, they say, oh, Signal is bullshit, because for sure Meredith Whittaker is related with the CIA or with the politicians. Oh, Telegram is bullshit, blah, 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 blah. So what they end up doing, having a ERC chat with 40 people, and everyone is talking on Telegram and developing games on Telegram and mini apps. So if you don't find a common ground to welcome people and to actually go and speak with the people, we are not going to make it, because we are talking about hundreds of thousands, if we want to be optimistic, of people that can understand what the ZK is, but we have billions of people that are using internet every day, and they don't need to understand ZK. They just need to have a reliable service that can do what they need to do. So I would say, to sum it up, we are trying to have a more socio-political perspective, action, and impact around how to use these technologies, how to make people understanding each other and coming together, and addressing what are the real challenges that we are here together to tackle. rather than just continue to invest to future developments of technology that one day will be perfect and it will be amazing and everyone will welcome and embrace that code without facilitation, without marketing, without being competitive with a WhatsApp. Yeah, I got a bit lost, but I hope you will manage maybe to cut or to pick up what's
Yes,
interesting.
don't worry. Yeah, no, that's a really good answer, and it makes me think about what we talk about a lot, like around human tech at Holonym, is kind of having culture and creativity and this very human element of all of our lives as almost a substrate for meaningful coordination and kind of rallying around what's important to all of us at the end of the day. So of course that in this context, it is privacy, but I'm curious as well as when we're talking about building bridges with, I don't know, like we've talked about journalists or advocates like Julian Assange and others. How do you see kind of the opportunity for and the ability of maybe journalists, for example, or researchers coming into this space, helping to advance this sort of privacy preserving ecosystem? And also, what would you tell them are, maybe they don't know about cryptography even, but what benefits could they maybe concretely experience when it comes to these ideals and standards?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I think the very impactful way to do so is to find people that are individuals that maybe are journalists, but they also have a past life in tech, or still they got to know about crypto through WikiLeaks or something else, just because they know how two different realms work, the journalist world and a little bit of the tech world. And this allows a connection to happen between these two realms. And we had some lawyers at our hackathon the other week here in Berlin. One was Judith de Boer, which is the lawyer which is basically following Alexei Petersev case, the Tornado Cash case in the Netherlands. And then we also had these journalists that for the last 40, 50 years basically supported and crowdfunded independent journalism around the world. And so it was so inspiring for developers and for me as well to speak with these people and understand, okay, what is needed for journalists in Gaza now, or what is needed for journalists in, I don't know, Iran or some other countries right now, or what tools were they using 10 years ago, what tools are they using now, how can we um, basically implement these very practical, grounded in the real world use cases and needs in a hackathon with Web3 tools, or not only with Web3 tools, but with whatever tools can be impactful in that sense. Um, and I've got to discover the more you are open to see that, again, there are a lot of people that care about these things, and you should not just talk with who has Linux and will write code. For example, I discovered um, this lawyer in France. I don't remember her name because a friend of ours, Andreas from Fileverse, was telling me that this lawyer is basically suing big companies, big tech companies and monopolies, appealing to the GDPR, which, as we know, is not perfect at all. But still gave her the opportunity to sue these huge companies because they are damaging small open source projects with their monopoly, basically. And she won a lot of causes. She won a lot of cases. And basically, all the money that she made suing these big companies, she was redirecting this money to small open source communities and projects. So, or another example, at ETH Dam this year, the privacy hackathon and conference, I've got to meet Joachim Schwerin, which is the principal economist at the European Commission. And he came to the conference with his favorite metal music band, Hoodie. And he was speaking to the public in a very straightforward, informal way, basically stating, we are not the enemies. There are institutions are made by people. Stop feeling that regulators are your enemies, because if we don't manage to understand each other and to basically talk about what can be policies that are smart in order to not stifle innovation, but stifle these huge monopolies agendas, we are not going to make it because we want to produce more meaningful and human policies, but we don't understand the tech. So we should sit together and understand what we can do together. And that was super powerful because actually, a policymaker coming from European Commission talking to crypto folks about let's team up, it was super powerful. And I feel there are many people like this. So what we're trying to do with Web Privacy now is to basically welcome these people on the stage and having diversity in the room as much as possible and facilitating this interaction to happen, because there is a lot of value that we can share and we can learn from each other. There was something else I wanted to tell you about lawyers. Well, one other point is that, but this is a little bit out of scope because it's more about incentives. So basically, we ran this hackathon and we didn't have bounties. So basically, we didn't have organizations telling developers we will give you 5k if you develop whatever with our stack, but rather we just try to champion open innovation. So having ideas spreading from the mentors that were there, the lawyers that were there, real use cases that we presented. We gave developers some tools, we gave developers some content to just motivates them to see what they want to develop, and giving them the chance to still win prizes, but without having constraints coming from these bounties or organization agendas. So they could use the whatever stack they wanted, and they could connect actually with these lawyers, with these people to understand, depending on what is their passion, their interest, or the challenge they want to tackle, they were free to basically use the tools that they wanted. So I feel it's very important to connect these different realms and people and backgrounds.
Definitely. And this actually segues into what I wanted to ask next. You talked about kind of big tech and I guess more broadly capitalist interests. And I think a lot of times, especially kind of wanting to reclaim maybe the Web3 narrative or kind of get more towards like a care punk sort of ecosystem, I guess, or environment here. There's a lot of this sort of Web 2 versus Web 3, or like the people versus like the government or the
Yeah.
capital. So I'm curious because you mentioned, and I think it's super interesting, kind of inviting people, policymakers, and people in charge of, setting this regulation into these spaces, having this human connection. But I'm curious, do you think that kind of this integration and this respect for, let's just say, privacy broadly, is achievable via regulation and via this human connection? Or what sort of roadblocks or maybe other opportunities do you see to make, yeah, privacy essentially the standard across everything we do online?
Well, that's a very great question. I think the only way to advance freedom in society is to address it from different angles. So, for sure, I think it's crucial to develop the tools and to allow people to understand these tools, because we should make these tools usable and easy to understand, and grounded in real needs. Um, and this is one side, so the technical development. Then I feel it's needed like communicating properly what is privacy, because privacy is a huge topic. It's really depending on where you live, what you care about, what kind of truth you want to speak about. um, so it's a huge topic, but still is not yet, how can I say, addressed from. I mean, we are not good in talking about privacy in Web3. There is no like clear speech that an average person can listen to and understand something about privacy.
Mm.
The one that I really like is the one made by president of Signal at the CCC conference this year. So the room was full of hackers. It's one of the most hardcore conference um, around technical development since, I don't know, 30 years. And she was basically, the speech was about privacy as an act of care, intimacy, and love. And the speech was really meaningful and touching the heart of a possible artist, a teenager, a grandmother, whoever, because she spoke about privacy in a human way. And this is also why I think the key is to stay human in this information age, because we have a lot of incentives that are bringing us away from ourselves, and into cultivating an avatar or some practices which are not grounded with our human selves. And this is also detaching us from the chance to connect with other humans in a very human way. Sorry for the repetition. But yeah, to address your question, and one of these important angles is regulation, because we live in a society which has laws, which has constitutions. So if we want to be idealistic and think that through technology in 5 years we will have this idealistic solar punk world where everyone is growing the veggie and whatever without the government, it's not going to happen. We have a decentralization centralization problem for the last 30,000 years. We have the same problems, just different tools, and we feel to be a lot more smart than back then. But I feel we still are like monkeys that just discovered how to exchange bananas or to sell bananas. So I feel we should be more grounded in the real world and understand that the only way we can make it is also through teaming up with regulators, because especially in Europe, I mean, we are not competitive from a technological development point of view with China, with US, whatever. But in Europe, we are good at regulating and basically safeguarding uh, human rights, at least better than in other places in the world. So I think this is our challenge, to develop conversations and smart policies to advance meaningful and human innovation. And we have good use cases where this happened actually in Europe. So I'm very confident that this is possible, especially getting to know more and more people that are working in institutions that are able to produce these policies. For sure, it's not easy, but I feel it's as important as the technological development path. Also, because imagine if only we start taxing these huge monopolies in a proportional way to the amount of taxes that as an individual, an average middle class person is paying, or at least sanctioning these companies for continuously not paying taxes and going to foreign countries to have lower or better, and I think through regulations we can really do a lot, because still we live in a world where the law matters something. um, so yeah, I think there are a lot of angles, directions that must be taken forward, and also that privacy freedom won't come out of nowhere, out of the bloom, but it's like a practice, something that each individual should cultivate, understand, and take forward in very different means, because again, everyone has different needs related with privacy, freedom. And I think the only way we can make this is together, and is by speaking to the public, not to Web3, not to Ethereum, not to these small bubbles, but to the broader ecosystem that care about freedom.
Absolutely. And I love that's a very optimistic vision. I think we get caught up in being so kind of oppressed by the systems that are already in place, but there is a way to actually work with them. And that's really, really nice to be reminded of. And kind of following on from that, what is the next big kind of maybe breakthrough that you're hoping for, or maybe it's even a different protocol that you're excited about that you see in the works? I think as far as kind of bringing this to the public, there's a lot of hope for, or the importance of making privacy default, mainstreamed, almost like this
Yeah.
unseen element that's a foundation of everything else. So what do you see as kind of the next steps there, or potential maybe breakthrough moments?
I already feel very happy about seeing different key influential leaders in the space putting privacy as a priority, finally, after years of scalability, of decentralization, of different characteristics. And also, thanks to a lot of advocacy that many people and institutions and organizations in the space have made in the past years, now finally privacy seems to be more accessible, more spreaded all over. And this is, I think, the cultural aspect that should be how can I say, empowered and followed, because at the end, if again you curate all these huge events and hackathons that in Web3 are hosted, if you put privacy at the center of the development, or at least you give privacy a good amount of attention, because actually in the past editions of DevCon of DevCon.net, privacy was really a niche, like was 5% of the project, even less probably. So it was not even a track. While last year in Istanbul, last year in Bangkok, we saw Cypherpunk as a track of the DevCon or DevConnect. I always exchange those. So I think bringing privacy as a mainstream in terms of agenda and actions that as an ecosystem we should take forward, I think it's key, and I'm very happy to see this in the space more and more. And to be honest, again, I see slowly the ecosystem shifting from mass adoption to privacy. And what I'm very bullish on is about our own internal agenda with Web Privacy Now, because I see the project growing like crazily. We are receiving a lot of support from amazing people in the space, Web3 and beyond, which reconfirm that actually what we see important really matters for people that have 60 years of experience in the field. And so we are very happy to bring this forward with the help and support of a lot of nice people. For example, we will host this Cypherpunk Congress in Buenos Aires in Argentina in November. We already have 60 speakers, from Chelsea Manning, so whistleblowers, to Tor, to Electronic Frontier Foundation. We're also trying to bring huge names so that the people will see that privacy is broader than just crypto. And also we are forging relationships with local grassroots communities and movements in Argentina, so to bring on stage, or at least at the event, also these grassroots needs and perspectives and experience from the field, so localized needs and use cases. And we are kind of, I'm personally I don't like bullish as a term, but I'm personally very excited because I see how much this is working. Like the approach and the work we are bringing forward is helping newcomers and people that gives us a lot of good feedbacks and love and support. And we are seeing that when we talk about this more holistic take on privacy, on freedom, people really resonate with that. And they can be artists, they can be lawyers, they can be developers. And so it's super powerful, and it's so nice to see the community and the ecosystem growing, the amount of diversity and the amount of resilience that also diversity can bring into the space.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I think that actually is a great note to end on. I was hoping you would talk a little bit about kind of the future of this space. So yeah, I guess if there's anything else that you want to, or if you want me to ask you anything, I can ask you something additional, or if there's anything you want to talk about as far as, yeah, upcoming, I don't know, milestones or
Mm-hmm.
projects that you have going on, anything like that, that you want to bring up.
Yeah, maybe a book that we are working on. Basically, we are about to publish, and it's very slow, the process, because like publishing agencies, how do you name that? They are so
Yeah.
slow. They are so slow. So it will happen in a year or so. But I already received like most of these contributions, because we are basically writing this book about privacy in the digital space, welcoming contributions from academics, professors, lawyers, developers, Tor people, Audrey Tang. So from political take to more take from the law, take from human rights lawyers, take from Peter Val Valkerburg from Coin Center, so advocates, activists. Yeah, one of the things I'm very excited about is basically bringing to life something in the physical world. So we are working on this publication, which is aimed to basically help the general public framing privacy in the digital space, in the information age, in a way which is speaking to their hearts and to the real needs. So the whole concept is basically having this book where every chapter is curated by a different thought leader or expert in privacy or in human rights. So we are having, for example, a contribution from Audrey Tang, the digital minister of Taiwan. We have a contribution from Peter van Valkenburg, the executive director of Coin Center, policymaking in America and US. We have contributions from human rights lawyers. We have contribution from David Chaum, one of the OG cryptographer that brought to life a lot of primitives that now Web3 communities use. And we have like 12, 13 contribution by these like very highly experienced people, but we also try to have from them some pieces that really speak to the people. So, for example, David Chaum, cryptographer, he invented blinded signatures. He will speak about privacy in democracy, so not technology. And with this publication, we really want to bring at the center of attention how much this is a very important topic, like privacy and freedom. How can we reimagine privacy and freedom in this information age? And this topic basically brought to the mass attention from different perspectives, different angles, and with a very easy tone of voice, with a very easy way to convey the meaning. So there will be short chapters, each chapter curated by one different expert professional with different takes, and we aim to go and distribute this book throughout academia and independent libraries. So also reaching a public which is not coming to the crypto conferences, but is more into this kind of social, cultural, political take on life. And this, I'm very curious to see the impact of this piece of work.
Definitely. I definitely will be finding that. Does it have a name yet, the book?
Yeah, we have a title, which is Reimagining Privacy and Freedom in a Digital Space. And then there is a subtitle I now not remember. We collected 65% of these chapters, and we are now in contact with the Polity Press, Pluto Press, and MIT University Press to bring this forward with, let's say, internationally renewed publisher that can distribute this in the following 5 years or so.
Amazing.
But I will let you know more. Yeah. I'll send you something.
Yes, please. I would love to read more and definitely be on the lookout for it once it's published. Hopefully soon. That sounds super interesting and very unique in the space. I think there needs to be more of that. Well, wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the time today out of your beautiful park day. It was really nice to talk about Web3 privacy now and hear your story and kind of the ethos behind it all, which I think is the most special part, actually. So really appreciate your time. And but yeah, thank you
Thank
again.
you.
I really appreciate the time and. Yeah, hope to meet you at the
Likewise.
next in-person event.
Indeed, absolutely, indeed. Thank you for your time, for inviting me, and wish to meet you in real life and talk a lot more about human rights and also your background and your passion and how do you feel about Holonym and Shadi going around the world doing this stuff.
Would love to. And yeah, if you're ever coming through Paris, well, Shadi's normally here, not always, but would love to see you here as well.